Ready to go? All right. This is a prayer labyrinth. We borrowed this one from First Lutheran Church in Des Moines, Iowa, and we've had the privilege of using it for a couple of months. So before it goes back home, we wanted to tell you a little bit about prayer labyrinths and what it means to walk one, because that's a very different experience for a lot of people. It's an ancient tradition. The two most traditional formats for a prayer labyrinth come from different cathedrals in Europe, and you can look at those online. But in the meantime, we want to show you what it's like to actually walk a prayer labyrinth and to be in prayer and learn something from God about what the Christian life is all about as you walk. The first time I walked this particular prayer labyrinth, I got very confused because I was expecting to follow the colors, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, purple, and that is not the way this prayer labyrinth is laid out at all. It took me a while to realize that it wasn't about following the colors, it was about staying between the black lines that are marked on this particular labyrinth. And that was a good reminder that the path that God lays out for us isn't always what I think it's going to be. You know, I can look at things logically from my perspective and think that life is going to go in a certain direction, in a certain order. And most times that isn't what God has in mind for me at all. In fact, God has thrown me plenty of curves, literally, throughout my life. Things haven't gone according to the plans that I've made for myself. And yet I do believe, from where I've ended up at this point in my life, that my life has clearly gone the direction God intended for me, that I am where I am supposed to be on God's path for my life. But here's the thing. It's really hard to stay between those narrow black lines. You know, the Bible talks about walking the straight and narrow path. And well, I'm doing pretty good so far today. There are other times when I lose my balance and it's really hard to stay within these black lines. And I have to pay attention. I can't be looking around at other things. I can't get distracted. If I'm going to really keep my feet within the straight and, it's not so straight, but within this path that is laid out for me to walk on the prayer labyrinth, then I really have to pay attention to where I'm placing my feet. And that's true in life. I have to pay attention to what I'm doing every step of the way. Now, a prayer labyrinth leads you by a circuitous path, and not the one you expected, in towards the center. So a prayer labyrinth is about following the path to find your way to God. And that's the center. And sometimes when I've walked this prayer labyrinth, I've taken a moment in the center to stop and pray. But then God never leaves you there. God sends you back out into the world. God goes with you. It's God's path that you're walking. But you have to follow it back out into the world and take what you found, what you've learned, to the world around you. And so you follow the path back out. Now there was one day that I was so upset about something. I came upstairs and walked this path, and I walked it twice, all the way in and all the way out, before I was calmed down enough. The second time I walked it, I prayed the Jesus prayer every step. And by the time I left, that third round, I was very calm and ready to go home and enjoy the rest of my day. In the midst of all of that, I found a very curious thing about this particular prayer labyrinth, the way it's laid out. There is a block right over here, I'm just about to get to it. It is completely surrounded by black, which means the path never enters that one little square. And so the day that I was so upset, I just left everything I was angry about in that square. Every time I got near it, I physically threw in it what I was so frustrated with, and left it there for God to deal with because it was stuff I couldn't do anything about. And that was a lesson I never expected to learn, but that I really appreciated learning as I walked this prayer labyrinth that day. And I'm coming now almost to the end of this particular round. Grateful that we have had this prayer labyrinth to use. Hoping that others will consider finding labyrinths to walk. Several places, particularly Catholic retreat centers, often have them out in the lawn that you can use. I found one in a gift shop in Bayfield, Wisconsin, actually, the first one I ever walked. Or you can use a finger labyrinth, or sometimes you can trace one online. But it's a practice I hope you give a try. Thank you. Yeah.